and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program that aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice located in Encino, California. We're offering this program to you this morning at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. And I'm here along with my very best friend, my wonderful colleague, and my amazing business partner, Dr. Robert Jaffe. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's a beautiful morning.
It's a beautiful morning.
Yes.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, and welcoming our listeners, our viewers from anywhere that they're listening to us or watching us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We are here to welcome you to our show. We are here to talk about addictions, codependency, relationships, and trauma. And why are we talking about that? We're talking about that, number one, because it is so widespread. It's not ubiquitous, but it is very, it's sort of like its own pandemic, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
I think that's a very nice way of describing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Good. Okay.
It's very own pandemic, yeah.
Yeah, it's like our own pandemic. Millions of people suffer with addictions. Many more suffer with codependency and don't understand really that they are codependent or that there's anything that they can do about it. So we're here to educate, and we're here to hopefully enlighten, and we're here to give some hope to those people. And so that's what we're going to do today. Today we're going to talk. I see you open the book to a great page. It's called The Genesis of Codependence, and so we will pick up from that place.
Yeah, I thought we're talking about codependency, and then it's important to know more about it, in depth, and something that most everybody can relate to that.
Yes, yeah. So I think what we'll do today is we're talking about codependence, the genesis of codependence, and this is from the book called Codependence, Healing the Human Condition. Subtitle is The New Paradigm for Helping Professionals and People in Recovery. It's by Charles Whitfield. I consider this the Bible of codependence. And we're looking here at, he lists 18 factors that are usually present or mostly present in the formation of codependence. So I thought, at the beginning right now, what we can do is we can just kind of go through these quickly, and then we can go back and start and talk about each one.
I think so.
So the first one part of it is codependency starts with wounded and inadequate parents and unsupportive other environment. So this is about people growing up in an environment where the parents themselves are wounded, and we're talking about emotional wounding, and inadequate because of the wounding. They didn't get a chance to mature properly, so they are unable to help us in the way that we needed to be helped. The second is there's an invalidation or repression of the child's inner life, and as well as its internal cues, such as the child's observations, feelings, and reactions. So that's the second part. Invalidation and repression means that the parent is only paying attention to behavior and doesn't care about the child's feelings, doesn't care about what the child thinks or sees. And so the child begins to think that they are what they do, rather than a unique self that has their own thoughts and feelings that need to be valued. The third part is neglecting the child's needs. These can be physical needs or emotional needs or both. So neglecting the needs is the next part. As a result of that, the child begins to stifle their child within. And what that means is that part of them that's creative and that's authentic and that's spontaneous gets stifled in order to be what the parents think that they need to be. So that's the next part. The fifth part is beginning to construct a codependent or a false self, which again means that the child conforms to the parents' expectations, even though the expectations are destructive to the child, and the child begins to think less of him or herself and more as I'm here simply as sort of a robot to be used in the way that my parents need me to be used.
And at times to be a trophy for them.
An attempt to be a trophy, correct. Good point. The next thing, number 6, is beginning to construct our codependent self, which again takes us out of our authentic true self. And again, we further deny our thoughts and feelings as being valid, and we create those that we think other people are going to want from us. The next one is distortions in personal boundaries. So what does that mean? That means that I'm not sure where I end and you begin. So I often think that there's mind reading going on, and that you can read my mind, or I'm supposed to be able to read your mind, and we don't have to express ourselves. So there's all sorts of fantasies going on about what people want from us and what we can provide from them. The next one is we have denying a family secret. So in my family, the family secret was that my mother had an explosive side and my mother was depressed. And that was hidden from everyone, including the children. We even though we knew it, we didn't know it because it wasn't told to us. So we knew that the behavior was off, but we didn't understand that my mother had an illness, an emotional illness, and that we were the subject of that because that was denied by both my mother and my father. The next one is people develop a high tolerance for inappropriate behavior. So like my mother would scream and yell and hit at the beginning, and then used to punish us by cutting up my sister's clothing, which she loved, and cutting up my Superman comics, which I loved. And so after a while, I sort of became numb to it. And so that was that part of it, high tolerance for inappropriate behavior. The next part is inability to grieve a loss to completion. So what that means is our feelings are denied and we're not allowed to feel our feelings fully. And so when there's losses in our life, we don't know what to do, and we begin to believe that it's not that big a deal, or I need to get over it quickly. And so we don't allow ourselves to feel sad and to grieve. And the purpose of grieving, of course, is to complete the cycle of authenticity. If you can't grieve, you can't be your authentic true self. The next one is blocking of growth, mental, emotional, and spiritual. We've talked a little bit about that part of us, that authentic true self, is blocked, and what that keeps us in a child state, an emotional child state, and we don't become fully functioning adults. We actually can be functioning in one sense. We can actually function in the world as far as holding down a job or making money, but we can't function in the world of connection, of authentic connections and authentic relationships. that part gets blocked. The next one is we have compulsive behaviors in order to lessen the pain. The compulsive behaviors can be addictions and often are. So people who have addictions can also be codependent and often are. And then also other compulsive behaviors is, compulsive hand washing, or there's a TV show, I think in the 90s called Monk, where he had an obsessive compulsive personality, and he couldn't step on cracks, step on a crack, break your mother's back kind of thing. And so, and that was in part due to the fact that he couldn't grieve his wife's death. So that was that's what happened to Monk. There's also progressive shame and loss of self-esteem, because our self-worth and self-esteem can't be acknowledged by ourselves, and we can't allow other people to see who we really are. So as we hide ourselves from other people, we feel that we need to hide. And why do we need to hide? Because there's something bad about us. There's something shameful about us, so our self-esteem goes down. We also often feel out of control, and so we compensate sometimes by becoming very controlling, and that can happen in relationships and can certainly be problematic in relationships. People trying to control other people. The next one is there's a delusion of pain, delusion and projection of pain, meaning that we're inside, we don't feel good. But because we're used to it and we're not aware that it's us, we project it onto other people, and we think that there's something wrong with other people, and we project our negativity onto them, and we blame them a lot. The next one is we develop often stress-related illnesses. We can have a lowered immune system. And we can also have stomach problems, headaches, backaches, and it can even get worse as a result of holding in our authentic feelings and our authentic true self. The next one, our compulsions worsen. And the last one is we have a progressive deterioration. Sometimes it can deteriorate into mood swings. We can have, of course, difficulty with intimate relationships. We can be chronically unhappy, and we have an interference it interferes with our ability to recover from alcoholism or chemical dependency, as well as the compulsions that we mentioned, and as well as other conditions. So this is from, again, the book Codependence, Healing the Human Condition by Charles Whitfield. These are 18 pieces of codependence. And now you have a little sense of the origin of codependence and where it goes. So we just got notified, and when we come back, we're going to talk about each of these more in detail, and we hope you'll join us.
Well, thank you. See you back after our commercial break.
See you back soon.
Good morning and welcome back. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. Dr. Mitra, Dr. Robert here. For those of you who just joining us, our topic for today is the genesis of codependency. And please call us. We want to hear from you. We appreciate the fact that you're giving us your hour on Friday morning. We thank you for that, and we're also here for you to answer your questions. We want you to share your stories with us, only to help each other and to learn from each other. Our phone number is 951-922-3532. You can also visit us at our YouTube, heart-2-heart.online/YouTube. And we have some free handouts over there for you.
We do, indeed. So we talked in the first segment about the genesis of codependence. We're talking about the book Codependence, Healing the Human Condition by Charles Whitfield. And we talked about the 18 parts that happen in codependence and how those affect us.
So in this book, I saw this part after the Genesis, which caught my attention.
Yes.
Right. So how do we, we know that, how this happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this one gives us that something about how our awareness plus our sense of responsibilities are impacted during this process.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And I see that a lot in my clients.
Yes. Yes. And one way of looking at it is because of the wounding of the parents, the child can be it can be a child or it can be an adult child, right? The child doesn't get what they need in order to mature properly, and so the child grows up to be what we call an adult child, right? Or somebody who hasn't matured in a way that allows them to know themselves and to be known by others. So the first thing that we said in the Genesis of Codependence is that the wounded and inadequate parents were unsupportive of the child. So that means that the parents, and this doesn't mean that our parents didn't love us if we come from that. It means that they didn't know how to
raise a child,
how to raise us, and how to give us what we really needed. And so we did the best we could. And one of the things that we did was we looked for our solutions to how to feeling better outside of ourselves. And so addiction to things outside of us, which can be anything, right? It can be drugs and alcohol, it can be food, it can be sex, it can be exercise, it can be work, anything outside of us. When I say outside of us, I mean anything that doesn't originate from our own imagination and our own feelings, our own emotions, and our own thoughts. Those things need to give us satisfaction. We have to be happy with us. And when we're not, and so when we don't know how to be happy with us, we look for things outside of us to make us happy. And our culture is rife with that. Our culture is all about looking outside of ourselves. Now, is it wrong to look outside of yourselves? For example, is it wrong to say, I want a big house? Is it wrong to say, I want a nice car? Is it wrong to say, I want jewelry? And we're not saying that it's wrong. It's not wrong to want those things. But we need to understand that those things in and of themselves will not bring us happiness. They may make life easier. They may give us pleasure, but it's not the same thing as happiness. What we talked about previously, not in this show, but in other shows, is that euphoria, which we get from drugs and alcohol, and even sex, which is a euphoric experience, is different than happiness. So we can get high from it. We can get high from a sexual experience, and we can get high from drugs and alcohol. We can get high from gambling. And that euphoric experience may feel good to us. And it usually does feel good, or we wouldn't be doing it. But just because it feels good, it's not to be confused with what true happiness is.
And I think that's the part that many make a mistake. They say, well, it makes me feel good. I feel, myself, feel like, I'm enjoying myself for that moment.
Yes.
But as long as that is like taking a pain medication, right?
Right.
For as long as that pill lasts in body, we don't feel the pain. But it doesn't mean that the problem that causes the pain is gone away.
Mm-hmm. Right.
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 So the pain will come back.
Yeah. So that gets us on the cycle of relieving the pain returning, relieving the pain returning. But what if you're raised in an environment where the pain isn't addressed as pain? Then it becomes the norm. So if you're chronically being ignored, let's say, if your parents don't ignore how you feel, or ignore how you feel, or ignore what's important to you when you want to talk about something, they don't take it seriously. That causes a feeling of rejection, and that rejection stays inside of your subconscious mind and causes a malaise. It's an overall feeling of, gee, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling real good. And that's what we say when we say emotional pain. Certainly, if your parent is mean to you or abusive to you, and your parent calls you names or puts you down or compares you negatively to other people, or tells you through their behavior and or their words that your thoughts and feelings don't matter, you do feel sad, and you do feel rejected, and you do feel confused, especially when you're very young, and you don't know that's what's going on, and that's what's hurting you, but you just know you don't feel right. So there's a difference. Let's say if you're raised in an environment where you're not being treated as though your thoughts and feelings matter, and you're raised in an environment where you do feel as if your thoughts and feelings matter, and you become 16 or 17 years old and you go to a party, and you may, and there's alcohol there, and you may have a drink. And so to the person who's raised in the environment where their thoughts and feelings didn't matter, and they have a drink, the alcohol creates a feeling of relief from the pain that they've been carrying. And they have the drink and they go, wow, this is terrific. I really like this feeling. Whereas the person who's been raised as though their thoughts and feelings do matter, they drink the alcohol and they go, oh, that's an interesting feeling. But it's not necessarily better than their normal feeling state because they're already feeling good. So they may have the drink and go, it's okay, but I don't really need to have any more. But the person who's getting the real charge from it wants more. And so that's an example of how codependence and how negative parenting can affect us. So what do we need if we want to begin to heal from codependency? We need to have an awareness of what happened to us, right?
And that's the difficult part for many people,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have clients here that when we go through that direction that you're about to explain, they deny it. They tell me I'm making a mistake about them and I'm judgmental about them and their parents.
Mm-hmm.
They have had loving parents and all of that. We never say parents are not loving. However, what we focus on is how the method of child rearing is the one that in question.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
I mean, every parent, I'm a mom myself, and I want nothing but the very best for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But was I a perfect parent? Absolutely not.
Right.
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 I did my very best based on knowledge and everything, to raise a healthy child. And I have done that for the most part. However, looking back, I probably would have changed a few things knowing what I know today.
Exactly. So awareness that you have been raised in a way that was not necessarily in your best interest is as you say, this is a very, very difficult thing for people to look at. And part of the reason that it's so difficult is because a young child idealizes their parent. Yeah. And why is that? Why does a young child idealize their parent? And the answer is because they have to. The parent is all powerful. The parent, remember, the parent is 5 feet tall, or 5.5, or 6 feet tall, or 6.5 feet tall. The child is maybe 6 inches tall, or a foot tall, or a 1.5 feet tall. And so you're looking up at this great big being, and you're totally dependent on them for your welfare. And so the child can't tolerate the thought that the parent is not looking out for them. So the child has to believe that that's true for the parent, no matter who the parent is. And if the parent is hurting the child physically or denying the child's emotions, the child has to believe at a very young age that it's their problem, and they're at fault. Mm-hmm. And so that forces them then to comply with the parent. And of course, as we grow up, our left brain starts to get more active, and we're able to analyze things, and we're able to see things more realistically. But we're still left with the powerful imprint on the right brain, which is the feeling brain, of how we were treated and what that meant to us. So often we want to protect our parents from any negative thoughts, because as a young child, that would have been the same as saying, I'm in the care of somebody who could destroy me at any moment, and that would be too unbearable. So I can't think that, so I'm going to be protective of my own negative thoughts toward the parent, and God forbid anyone else say anything negative about them, I'm going to jump down their throat, because my parents were great, and even if they weren't great, they did the best they could, and there's no reason to have any negative feelings toward them. And of course, saying they did the best they could is, it may be, there may be truth to it, may not be true, but even if it's true, it's still a way of not looking at what the parents actually did do and didn't do that affected the child.
And I think as a child, or even as a grown-up, we don't want to see that. We don't want to look at it because of our inner shame and guilt of confronting our parents, or realizing that our parents were not perfect people, as we thought they were.
Correct. Absolutely.
And that shame and guilt is profound. These are profound feelings. And then fear of losing them, or fear of rejection, or fear of even, looking at our parents that way, the sinfulness that comes with it, right? So there is a form of, it's a very ugly triangle of negative emotions in our mind that tells us it's like a stop sign. We have this stop sign that's a triangle. I forgot what was that symbol for. Mm-hmm. But we sort of developed this triangle, a stop sign in our mind that at the core part of it, it says fear, and then shame and guilt at the bottom, right? And it's like a stop sign. Don't even go there, looking at your parents negatively.
Right.
But it's not to look at them negatively, is actually being realistic.
Yeah, it's substituting denial for the truth.
Right.
And what we know as psychotherapists is that denial is the big roadblock to personal growth.
Just like the river that divided the two parts of the town, right?
Exactly.
In Egypt.
Yes, denial, right. The Nile River is, but denial is a way of protecting ourselves from negative feelings. And by protecting ourselves from negative feelings, we don't get to explore and understand the deeper parts of ourselves. And remember that codependency means an awareness that we have an inner life. And if we're not aware that we have an inner life, which consists of our thoughts and feelings and fantasies and ideas, then we can't pay attention to that part of ourselves, and we can't allow other people to know that part of ourselves. And so then the world becomes very dim, because all that we're dealing with is our physicality and our behavior. And people get addicted to the idea that they are their physicality and their behavior. And those people are very, very judgmental of themselves and others. And yeah, and so when we're judgmental, then we can't learn about ourselves because the judgment cuts us off from knowing the things that we need to know in order to recover our authentic true self. So we just got our notification. We're having to take another break. We would love for you to call us, 951-922-3532, with your questions, comments, agreements, and we will see you in a few seconds.
Even disagreements.
Even disagreements. Okay, talk to you soon.
Welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. Our topic today is about codependency and, what happens to us and how it's developed and Genesis of Codependency. It's, like Dr. Robert said, it has its own pandemic, and many of us are, living in one form of codependency without even recognizing it and knowing it. However, at the end of the day, we experience some level of unhappiness. So, and it goes unnoticed because we're so used to it that we think, oh, everybody has some level of unhappiness, right?
Yeah, yes.
So anyway, call us. We want to know from you, how do you experience codependency in your life? 951-922-3532.
Right. So what I want to talk about now is that when people come into therapy and people are unaware of what therapy involves, they don't know oftentimes that it involves dealing with their inner life, their inner thoughts, feelings, emotions, fantasies, hopes, dreams, desires, that their inner life is really the issue. And what we do as therapists is we help them understand that their inner life is really the most important issue. And that is the part of us that is damaged when we are children, because our inner life is not attended to. Our parents, because their inner life wasn't attended to, they don't understand how important it is for our inner life to be attended to. And so it's very important to recognize that your inner life is where you live. Everybody lives in their thoughts and feelings. And what goes on outside is a reflection of what's going on inside. People don't understand that. So people take things literally as though what is going on outside is the most important thing. And that gets us into a lot of trouble.
And one of the things that, when I bring actually this point up, my clients tell me, but he's doing it to me. What do you mean that, I'm causing that? Mm-hmm. But look how I'm being treated. Look how mm-hmm. I'm not being this. And so they focus on the negative external experiences.
Yes.
Without recognizing that how their preoccupation with their unhappiness inside. Mm-hmm. Has something to do with creating that external, unhappiness.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. So what our inner life is a combination of all the things we just commented on, right? Our thoughts, feelings, fantasies, hopes, dreams, desires. And when our inner life goes ignored, or worse yet, trampled on, we don't know that it exists, or we feel that it's not welcome, or we feel that there's something wrong with us for having those things. And so what that does is it decreases our sense of efficacy in the world. We don't believe that we have power to fulfill things that we want. So we get trapped in relationships, and we get trapped in work situations that are not satisfying for us because the outer is so valued, and the idea that, oh, I have a wife, or oh, I have a husband, becomes more important than the reality of who that wife and who that husband is. Or I have a job becomes more important than the reality of whether I enjoy that job, and whether that job is something that I feel is meaningful to me.
Right.
And then we offer excuses, such as, well, how many people actually get to work at something they enjoy? That's sort of a fantasy. And yeah, some people are lucky, but most people just have to work in order to make a living.
Or I'm even lucky to have this job.
Yes, or I'm even lucky to have.
I'm lucky that, I have a husband, or I'm lucky that I have a wife.
Right, right. So they turn it around rather than recognizing, is this person fulfilling to them, and is this job fulfilling to them? And if not, why am I here? And the answer, of course, is you're here because you don't believe in yourself that you can have anything better. And why don't you believe in yourself? It's because you were taught early on not to believe in yourself. You were given these messages that were that annihilated your belief in yourself, and that's what we call destructive messages from our parents. We were talking a moment ago about why we don't want to think negatively about our parents. And we gave the main reason, of course, is because our parents are gods to us, and we want to keep them on the pedestal in order to feel safe, even when we're adults, and even when our parents are no longer on this planet. We still, the psychological drama continues. So when we're talking to someone in therapy about negative things that their parents said or did, and they're defensive of their parents, they're protecting themselves because the parent isn't in the room, right? So they're protecting themselves from feeling anything negative. And that's part of what maturity is learning how to tolerate negative emotions. And that's where people get caught, because oftentimes people say, why would I pay you all this money to feel bad? And I say back to them, I say, you're feeling, you're paying me this money to help you to recover your authentic true self. And part of that is learning how to tolerate negative feelings. Because if you can't tolerate negative feelings, you're going to make up stories to make things better, but those stories will not be based in reality.
And the way I say it is like this. I say you're paying a surgeon to cut you up, to put you through pain so that he or she can fix the actual problem. And of course, you're going to have to go through the process of, pain, the process of healing.
Mm-hmm.
And that will take, a long while before you can go back to being your old self in a healthy way this time, right?
Yes.
So there is lots of learning, and relearning is, how to get your new body to function, and for you to get used to your new functioning, right?
Right.
So that's a painful process, and it's not an easy process, but it's easy to see that from a surgical point of view rather than emotional healing point of view, and experiencing and tolerating, learning to tolerate the pain versus denying it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so what we have often then is we have people who are dedicated to feeling good at any cost. And the cost of feeling good is often the destruction of the truth. So people would prefer to hear a lie that makes them feel good than to understand the truth that may not make them feel good. Because people, even though there's an old expression, which is true, people don't understand or believe that expression, which is that the truth shall set you free. And so when people go into therapy, and even people who aren't in therapy, when they dedicate their life to truth, that means that they're signing up for Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in Disneyland, right? It's a wild ride because the truth is often unpleasant, but the truth often is always the thing that does set us free when we're able to deal with it, when we're able to accept it, when we're able to look at it. And so a lot of people vote for people who tell them what they want to hear rather than tell them the truth, because it makes them feel good, and they want to feel good, even though the price of that is having to experience a lot of pain when they realize that what they're being told is based on a lie and not the truth.
Exactly. So, you know, and part of, growing up in such an environment, the codependency, it's like we need to be who we are told in order to get that sense of, power within us, right? But then again, as a matter of fact, by being a codependent, our true power is being taken away.
Your true power comes from recognizing your inner life, and your inner life comes from being aware of the truth of your thoughts and feelings, and understanding that your thoughts and feelings matter.
Right. So we don't do that because, early on, that aspect of our life is being taken away from us.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So how can one get the awareness and get the sense of responsibility towards themselves, so that they can take a look at their, inner self and get all the power and all the authenticity, or most of it, that's been taken away from them early on. For example, I have a client that she's been sexually abused since age 6 or 7, all the way through 18 when she left the country.
Yes.
And nobody believed her that, that her family members, cousins, different people, random people, housekeepers were, were asking for sexual favor from her. And then she did tell her mom, right? But her mom never believed her, or told her, that these things don't matter and don't bring them up. So at times that's what she heard, and at times she wasn't believed, right? So she never felt that, she basically didn't know why she was alive. Was she alive to provide, sexual favors? And she even didn't know that she was doing sexual favors, right? Or, what was going on in her life. So she finally decided to leave the country and move away. But then again, today she is so broken.
Yeah.
That, so as a way of protecting herself, she has developed this unbelievable sense of control. This unbelievable sense of, I'm right, I must be right all the time, right? So that she continues to create so much more problems for herself. And at the end of the day, she is so unhappy that she can't even fall asleep.
She became so sensitive to other people's disagreement with her,
right?
That because she wasn't believed, that she can't tolerate another person's disagreeing with her.
Right.
So she has to be right all the time.
She has to be right all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And that happens throughout society, and happens with our leaders as well, where our leaders can't tolerate somebody else telling them that they're incorrect or that they've made a mistake, because their dedication is always to feeling good rather than to the truth.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, so one of her major conflict in her marriage, in her work, in everything, even with me, so is that she has to be right. So when we come up with an intervention, she said, yeah, okay, but.
Yes.
So that, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. situation happens to her maybe at least 1,000 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And when I brought this to her attention, she left therapy.
Yes.
She was so, impacted by that finding. And then she came back the next day and she said she was up thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
And she realized that for the first time, this is what she's doing.
Mm. But she left therapy.
But she left. She left so she left sort of frightened.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And the reason was that she's been to other therapists as well, and nobody told her that piece of information about her.
Right.
So she was really confused about how did I detect that in her? Mm-hmm. How come nobody else told her that? I mean, she's like about 40, and nobody ever told her that she can accept a disagreement, and she is so controlling as a result of her history.
So she left therapy because she was frightened.
She was frightened.
She was frightened, and it was a piece of truth that was so scary to her that she couldn't deal with it at this particular time in her life.
Right.
However, you did her a favor in that you brought it to her attention, and once we know something, we cannot not know it. Right.
Yeah.
So even though she left for now, it doesn't mean that she won't come back to you or somebody else.
Oh, she's coming back today.
Oh, she's coming back already. Okay. So that's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we just got, our notice that our program is about to end. We want to thank you for joining us today as well. We invite you to join us again next Thursday at 3 p.m. for another episode of Human Sexuality, and the following Friday for another episode of Codependency, Trauma, and Addictions and Relationship. We want to thank you for giving us your hour. We appreciate that, and please call us with your comments and questions. And don't forget, all you need is love.
Love, love, love.
Have a wonderful Friday and weekend.
See you next week.
See you.
Bye-bye.